Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. Thank you guys so much for sticking around with us. My name is Ruckus. We'll be here with you till 8 a.m. And this morning, some of you have been asking, how do we get into the U.S.? You want to know what are the new travel guidelines. You've been hearing this, you've been hearing that. Well, this morning, the Consular Chief at the U.S. Embassy is here to have a chat with us. Good morning to you, Cindy Diouf.
Good morning, Ruckus. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Welcome.
So tell me, let's start with, what are the necessary tests that we have to take to get into the U.S. now that this whole pandemic is going on? We know we have different rules and restrictions.
Sure. It has been kind of confusing because the rules keep changing.
Yeah.
But currently what the guidelines would be are you need to take a 24-hour viral test before coming to the United States. So that just means basically the day before your travel, you take a test. Whereas here in Trinidad and Tobago, you're required to do a PCR test. That's not the requirement. You can do a PCR. I've done that. But you could also do an antigen. So either of those tests will be acceptable, but it needs to be taken within 1 day.
Okay, and so 24 hours before you leave, before you leave.
Yeah,
so
we just say basically the day before to not make it so confusing.
Okay.
And since it's not so far, I mean, our countries are very close, so it's pretty easy to get that done. The other thing I want to put out there, of course, is that you would need to be vaccinated. In particular, I mean, there are some exceptions, of course, for American citizens and green card holders who are residents of the United States. But anybody that would be going to the United States on a tourist visa absolutely needs to be vaccinated.
And what about work visas?
Oh yeah, any kind of temporary visa would need to be you would need to be fully vaccinated. And in fact, even for immigration, in order to finish off your immigration process, and I would just like to throw out there that we have more than doubled the number of interviews that we're doing for immigration. So these are visas that are for family reunification. Often Trinbagonians in the United States are petitioning for their families. So in order for them to even complete the visa process, they also need to be fully vaccinated, and that becomes part of the medical screening process. So if they're not fully vaccinated, they won't be going to the United States. So it really becomes silly at this point not to be vaccinated, especially when we think of the fact that the United States donated over 300,000 Pfizer vaccines of a larger donation of 900,000.
But tell me something, in terms of the vaccines, is it a particular vaccine type that you require to have, or you'll accept all? Or?
Well, that's an excellent question. We accept anything that is WHO approved. So basically, any of the vaccines that were procured by the government of Trinidad and Tobago will be acceptable, in addition to the vaccines that were donated by the United States. So could be FDA, which is the Pfizer.
The Pfizer. So the Pfizer, the Sinopharm, AstraZeneca. Those are the three ones I think we had. The Johnson & Johnson.
Exactly. All of those are acceptable for travel to the United States.
Nice. And what about what is the mask wearing like when you get to the States now?
To me, it seems a little less strict than here, but it really depends upon which state you go to. Of course, on your airplane, you're going to need to have your mask on. Within the airports, generally, people are masking up. But having just been in the United States, even this month, in January, I was still in Washington, D.C., some parts of the country are very heavily masked and others aren't. So you need to really be mindful that when you travel, you are, of course, exposing yourself to a significant risk. But there are ways to mitigate that risk by masking or double masking or using the I think it's called a KN95, which is what a lot of people are using. So particularly risky right now, of course, because of Omicron. But a person such as myself have traveled safely to the United States and not gotten COVID and were able to return. So it's possible. And we, of course, encourage people from Trinidad and Tobago to travel to the United States.
And regarding the embassy itself, you guys have been open, like you said, you've been having meetings for people who want to leave, to go live in the States, to migrate. But what about people who are wanting visitors' visas?
Yeah, so that becomes a little more complicated because based on the Department of State, they have determined that passports for U.S. citizens, consular report of birth abroad for people overseas who have children in Trinidad, Americans who have children here, as well as people going for immigration, that those are priorities. And then the third priority, of course, would be the tourist visas. And so we have been doing them throughout the pandemic. Many embassies have not. Some embassies recently have closed. We do appointments every single day, and we have throughout the pandemic. But we have to do those at a reduced capacity, of course. Like I had hoped February that I would open up for regular interviews. And by regular interviews, I mean up to 100 to 150. Our previous average was about 300 a day. I had hoped that would happen in February. But of course, Omicron and the low rate of vaccination in Trinidad and Tobago has prevented that from happening. And
what's the numbers like now per day?
So we have quite a few of immigration and quite a few passport applications, and then we try to do about anywhere between 20 to 30 tourist visas. Now that could be student visa, that could be a work visa, that could be a tourist visa, but really most of them are emergency or expedited appointment requests. And so, but just to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, I really would like to apologize for not being able to open up, because people get their appointments and then their appointments get canceled, and there's, a lot of frustration around that. And I myself feel frustrated because, people have been waiting a really long time, and I would apologize, but I'd also like to let your viewers know the U.S. Embassy waiting room is not large, and it's not a safe zone.
Yeah.
And I have babies coming in there, and I have grannies coming in there, I have people with medical conditions coming in, and we cannot have more than 10 people in one location at any given time. So it becomes, for me, a moral imperative, not only to keep your citizens safe, but to keep my staff safe. 2/3 of my staff are Trinbagonian, who have come to work the entire pandemic, who have left their families at home in order to print visas, process visas for their fellow citizens. So hats off to my staff, but it is also as a leader, just as the leaders of Trinidad and Tobago in the United States have a moral obligation to keep people safe. So that's where I'm at right now, but I do hope to, in the coming months, open it up, because I know that there are, quite frankly, thousands of people waiting for their interviews. In addition to our regular in-person interviews, we do process about anywhere between 75 to like 120 interview waiver cases. Now remember, those are processing visas for individuals who've had a visa before, who've had a 10-year visa before, who can send them in. But I want to just, Ruckus, I just want to tell your listeners today, or your viewers, that don't just send it in, like you have to follow the steps, because a lot of people are sending in their old passports without the application, without all of the fee and all that. So all of the rules are at tt.usembassy.gov, and you have to see if you qualify. It'll take you through all of the steps, but don't send us anything unless you've gone through the full process, followed all of the steps, and they'll tell you whether or not you qualify and send it in. So we do those every day, and people have been asking, well, it used to take 2 weeks. Why is it now taking 3 weeks to get my passport back? And the honest answer to you is my staff has been impacted by COVID. So we have reduced staffing simply because people have family members with COVID. People have gotten COVID. I had COVID in 2020. So people are really, truly facing this, this pandemic. And yet, when they can, they come to work. So please excuse the delay. We get a lot of emails.
Bit of a delay,
Yeah.
So, you're saying the waiver process means that people who've had 10-year visas before, they go online to tt.usembassy.gov, and they can see the application form, download the application form, and they get all the steps written there as well.
All the steps are there, and it'll take you to a website where you then answer a few questions, and it'll determine for you whether or not you qualify for the program. And then after that, you will set up an appointment, And you set up an appointment simply because that starts the process of doing a payment. Then you go to Scotiabank, and it's only Scotiabank. I want to put that out there too for your viewers today. A lot of people are saying if you pay this thing online, you're going to get an expedited appointment. That's absolutely not true.
You have to pay through Scotiabank.
You can only pay through Scotiabank. You can't pay at the embassy. You can't pay a third party. They will not help you. They're unscrupulous. So go through the process, then you pay the fee, and then it'll tell you what you need to send to us. So don't send to us your original marriage certificate, your birth certificates. Make copies of that stuff if required. It'll tell you what's needed, and then you send it in. And generally, it's been about a 3-week wait, depending upon how much staff I have in the office to process the application.
But when you reach the online part of it, it already tells you whether or not you're successful?
Yeah, it'll tell you whether or not you can send it in. And keep in mind, it's not just for those 10-year renewals. It's also for children that are under the age of 14. And older people who are over the age of 79. They can also do the interview waiver process. But again, there's a qualification piece to it. So don't just send to the embassy, because then we send it back to you, and your process could take, then up
another
to 5
month.
months,
Yeah,
5 or 6
another month
months.
or two.
So don't do it. Follow the instructions.
All right. Well, guys, we heard here first. Follow the instructions. It's very clear. Just head across to tt.usembassy.gov, and all the information you need, whether you want to travel, whether you want to renew your passport, your visa, you can do that online and get the whole process and all the information. And I want to thank the Consular Chief at the U.S. Embassy for joining us this morning, Cindy Diouf. Good morning, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Take care. We take a quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.